Hello, my name is Ben Ingebretson. I'm one of the board members with 1212 Hope, and I want to thank you for taking a few minutes and joining me for this video to think a little bit about leadership. You are here because you have clinical expertise, and we're really grateful for that. And your support of the Jacaranda program. You're here perhaps because you have spiritual motivation. You're coming at this from a faith perspective or a sense that your life calling involves caring for and reaching out to serve children. But you are also here, you were selected because you have some degree of a leadership gift. 1212 Hope needs that leadership gift. The Jacaranda program needs that leadership gift. We depend on leadership and leadership development. Our vision is to expand this ministry, to grow the ministry, to touch the lives of many, many, many children. And we can't do that with clinical gifts alone or clinical skills alone. Clinical gifts, as critical as they are, those skills that you went to graduate school for and have honed, will not accomplish all of the leadership work that needs to be done in order for us to expand. So let me think with you about that for a few moments. To do so, let me take you back to a text in the Newer Testament of the Bible in 2 Timothy chapter 2. Paul, who is a great leader in his own rights, is at the end of his career, and he writes some words to his understudy, Timothy. And here's what he says. He says, "The things you heard me say in the presence of many, entrust to other people who will be qualified to teach yet others." So Paul imagines 2 or 3 successive generations beyond which his message will go beyond Timothy. Paul understands that the development of leadership, the development of the next generation of leaders, is key to the expanding influence of the mission that he was after. So come back with me to those words for a few moments. What did this look like in real time as Paul developed his ministry? Well, you can see it. You can actually see it unfolding in the missionary journeys that are recorded of Paul in the book of Acts. The first missionary journey, for example, which is recorded in Acts chapter 13 or 14, has Paul traveling about 1,500 miles, has him teaching and preaching and kind of doing it all. He's do-it-all Paul, and he's exhausted, probably not only because he's always getting drug around and stoned, but simply because he's trying to do everything himself in a small little team of folks that he felt like he needed to carry the whole freight. That's the first missionary journey in a nutshell, from a leadership perspective. The second missionary journey is qualitatively different in at least 2 ways. Number one, in chapters 16 through 18, Paul takes a much larger team with him. He understands that he's not going to be do-it-all Paul this time. He's got Silas, he's got Barnabas, he's got Timothy. He's into leader development the second time around. What's more, he's looking for partners in the field to work with in a way that he didn't quite do the first time around. And so you have people like Aquila and Priscilla and Apollos showing up. Paul's working smarter. He's not just working harder. So Paul is growing as a leader. You can see it as he expands his influence by changing his strategy and his methods. Then you get to the third missionary journey in Acts chapter 18 and following, where Paul, he parks in Ephesus for a couple of years. There's an interesting phrase there. It says in Acts chapter 19, verse 9, Paul took his disciples, left a synagogue, and daily had discussions in the lecture hall of Tyrannus. This continued for 2 years, so that everyone who lived in the province of Asia, Jews and Greeks alike, heard the word of the Lord. Now that's an interesting verse, because either Paul had some kind of a megaphone or a PA system, or he had some other way such that from the lecture hall of Tyrannus, all of Asia could hear the word of the Lord. And I think the answer to that strategy was leadership development. For those 2 years, Paul was training leaders. He was equipping people and sending them out. Ephesus was a sending place, and the people that were part of his lectures there were being trained on how they could extend and plant churches, how they could extend and do the work that he was doing in their towns, their communities, and continue the work. What's happening? What's happening here? Paul is moving, he's growing as a leader, but in a phrase, I think of it as he's growing from being a doer to being a developer. Have you been a doer before? Doers are, we're all doers, but doers sometimes can be do-it-all-ers. It's never good enough if I don't do it myself. I don't trust anyone else to do it. It's got to be me doing it, or I'm not sure who I am if I'm not doing it. It's my identity's wrapped up in always being the doer. Paul made that shift from being the do-it-all Paul, from being the one who had to have his fingerprints on everything, to being and gaining his sense of identity and purpose around being a developer of others, and sending and equipping and partnering and releasing and developing. So, what does this mean? I think it means that you and I must do the same thing. We'll have to be doers for a period of time, but we're at our best when we are developing others, when we're growing others up, when we're identifying others, recruiting them, training them, equipping them, releasing them. And maybe one way of thinking of this is that we must eventually develop other people to do what we can do as often as we can. Developing others to do what we can do whenever and wherever we can has to be our mantra if we're going to expand this movement. In fact, that's probably the first of 2 or 3 key leadership practices to bear in mind. But let me just pause there for one more moment. Most of us will want to hang on a little bit longer, perhaps, than we need to. We'll hold back oftentimes a little more than we ought to. And we're oftentimes better if we release a little sooner, if we equip a little bit more, if we empower a bit more, think more about empowering than perhaps we intuitively do. Again, think of recruiting, evaluating, training, and releasing. Identifying people that might be good for a role. Evaluating their potential for that position. Recruiting, evaluating, training them, and then releasing them. Secondly, to mentor and to coach those people. Paul didn't just release people. He didn't just release Timothy without walking alongside of him. And we're wise to do the same. That we have to stay connected to folks and stay encouraging them and checking in with them And frequency is really the key there. Oftentimes, people will recruit and develop someone and release them and then totally kind of take our eyes off of that individual for too long of a period of time. And how much wiser we are to check back in and to encourage and to see how they're doing, support them. See, Paul mentored Timothy. He walked alongside of him. And you know that we've got correspondence from their relationship. And so you and I must do the same with the folks that we develop. We must walk alongside of them. One little model for that is called the GROW model. And you can find that if you Google it, GROW coaching. And there's a little equipping training on how to coach. I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And think about how you can use that GROW sequence to coach people that you're developing as you are growing other people up into leadership. And then the third thing is to always keep your eye on the big picture. The one thing you probably won't release as a leader is visioning. Visioning. Seeing the big picture. Because those folks that you're bringing up, they probably won't see as far quite ahead as you can see. They will catch a vision at some point, but at this stage, it's your job to keep the vision clear, that the good news of healing and hope, of 1212 hope, of Jacaranda hope, of Christian hope, is for every child, is for every village, it's for every community, it's for every neighborhood, and we're committed to going as far as we can with that good news. 1212 Hope needs your clinical gifts. We need your expertise. All that training that you experienced in the past, we want to draw on that. 1212 Hope needs your spiritual motivation, your love for children, and your commitment to serve the next generation by releasing them and providing healing from the crippling effects of trauma. 1212 Hope also needs your leadership. God bless you as you develop that with us together. Thanks so much.